Trump has also picked Mike Pence as his VP. Yesterday, I went off on a considerable rant about how Trump had promised Kasich that he would become the most powerful VP in history. He would run the country while Trump would play the role of chairman of the board. He'd just kind of oversee things, set policy broadly. And apparently he's made the same deal, or probably he's made the same deal with Mike Pence. So who the hell is Mike Pence? Well, Frank Schaeffer has some insights into this. He's a New York Times bestselling author of more than a dozen books, including Crazy for God, How I Grew Up as One of the Elect, Helped Found the Religious Right, and Lived to Take all or almost all of it back. Frank was raised in a fundamentalist mission. His website is Frank Schaeffer, SCHAEFFER.com. And Frank, welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
Hey, it's always good to hear your voice. How are you doing?
I'm well, and it's nice to have you back with us. You say that Mike Pence is a Reconstructionist who believes in legislating Old Testament morality. What is a Reconstructionist?
Well, you know, he was raised a Roman Catholic, and then he accepted Jesus as his personal savior, as the evangelical lingo goes, and became what they call a Christian. Mm-hmm. You know, weird right there when you think that, you know, they become Christians out of the Roman Catholic Church, which kind of history regarded as kind of Christian, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But anyway, that's aside from that. But he then got into the far right of the evangelical movement, that is the Reconstructionist movement, that is run by people who, first of all, take the Bible, all of it, completely literally. In other words, these are guys who don't believe in global warming, but they really do believe in Noah's Ark, and not the one in Kansas either, the one they think is sitting somewhere on top of Mount Ararat. He doesn't believe in evolution, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a political spin to this, because back in the 70s, a gentleman by the name of Russes Rushdoony, who I knew personally when I myself was a religious right leader, as I talk about in Crazy for God for people who want to know why I got out, but that's a different story. But Rushdoony and people like my late father, Francis Schaeffer, and others held out that we had to return to a biblical moral code, which they interpreted as a literal interpretation of Old Testament law. In other words, stone gay people to death, adulterers have to be punished. All these things that you read about in the Old Testament that most Christians through history, even in the Middle Ages, did not take as a literal instruction to Christians. But Rushdoony, for instance, talked about hanging gay people, and this would be correct. And the equivalent, of course, today is ISIS and the radical Islamic movement that came out of the Wahhabist movement from Saudi Arabia. So there's an equivalent in other religions. But what surprises people is to learn the influence, not directly on the American people, but through leaders like Pence, through people like the late Chuck Colson, who was Nixon's hatchet man and also became a Christian and a Reconstructionist. And essentially, these guys don't get up on a platform and say, hey, we want to stone gay people. But what they do is they try to turn America subtly into a theocracy. So, for instance, Pence not only wanting to make abortion illegal, but in the state of Indiana, signing a law that said that people had the right to discriminate against gay couples based on their Christian faith. And then he backed down on that after a tremendous furore. But the fact is, little by little, these folks would like to roll back what we consider to be civil liberties based in a secular rule of law and replace it with the Bible. That's right. Who the Reconstructionists are. Pence is one of them. Well,
and with regard to women and abortion, I understand that Indiana is one of only 2 states in which, and this was a law that Mike Pence championed and signed, in which if a woman is pregnant with a badly deformed fetus that would normally be aborted, let's try again, that Pence will use the power of the state. We'll send a police officer to your home if necessary, or put this woman in jail to force her to carry her pregnancy to full term. And if she fails to do that, she goes to jail.
Yeah, and look at the way he interprets religious liberty. To him, religious liberty is giving evangelical fundamentalist Christians who are like-minded with him the right, for instance, in the case of places like Wheaton College and Gordon and others, to discriminate against gays and women. For instance, Wheaton College went to this evangelical school outside of Chicago, went to the Supreme Court at the same time as the Hobby Lobby decision, to argue that they didn't have to give their women access to insurance coverage for contraceptives. Gordon College, just down the street from where I live here in Massachusetts, where I'm sitting today, the president of that school wrote a letter to President Obama demanding that on the basis of religious liberty, they be allowed to fire faculty and dismiss students who were gay, and that they wouldn't have to obey the ordinary laws of citizenship. And then Pence, of course, is the same in Indiana, saying, well, if you're a Christian and want to discriminate against a gay couple and not rent them a house, you should be able to follow your conscience. And so to them, religious liberty equals taking away the civil rights of other people. And that is Mike Pence's entire contribution to the American body politic. And of course, that endears him to the far-right Tea Party evangelical movement, which is exactly why Donald Trump has sort of pulled a Sarah Palin in the sense that he's done what McCain tried to do and failed to do with Palin, and that is get somebody who is acceptable to this far evangelical right, about which, of course, Donald Trump could care less, witnessed 3 marriages, endless admissions of philandering, on and on and on, which would totally take him out of the running. So he's trying to build a bridge to some people and say, look, I may be a racist and I may be a philanderer and this may be my 3rd wife and I might have started a phony university, but hey, I've got my own views correct now in terms of you guys. And look, I'm even going to appoint one of your most extreme spokespeople, being Pence, and somehow paper over the fact that I'm exactly the opposite of everything your mom told you in Sunday school you were supposed to be as a Christian, which was, faithful, kind, didn't badmouth other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a very cynical ploy. And, the stunning thing is that Mike Pence has such an inflated ego about being the instrument of God on earth as a Reconstructionist politician who's going to turn America into a Christian country, that I think he's absolutely and dreadfully sincere about this view, and probably regards himself in a Bible story, kind of like the Bible story of Esther, where she's placed in the court of the Medes and Persians as a Jew in order to save the Jewish people. So he probably looks at Trump as an evil man, because he would, based on Trump's immorality from the point of view Pence would have as an evangelical. And now he's in the court of this wicked man, and God's going to somehow use him, Pence that is, to turn it around. And that's how deluded these people are. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. Frank Schaeffer, a New York Times bestselling author, more than a dozen books, including Crazy for God. You can read all about it at Frank Schaeffer, SCHAEFFER.com. And you can tweet him at Frank_Schaeffer. Frank, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
Good talking to you. We'll be back.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.